Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much to the Prime Minister of the People's Democratic Republic. I would like to now take this opportunity to say thank you to all heads of states and leaders for their statements and invite my colleague, Michael Gitonga, back on stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Can we give a clap, please? Thank you. And all other excellencies and heads of delegation will speak at the next session, and we'll handle that. So for us to transition to the next session, I will just guide you. We're going to have all the heads of state, only heads of state, to exit the room, while the rest of us will remain seated. So at this point, I would like to kindly request all the heads of state to exit the room. They'll be guided by protocol officers, where we'll have a family photo. Kindly note, only heads of state to exit. The rest of us, please, let's remain seated, and I'll guide you shortly. For those participating in the closed door session, we will proceed from here to that room so that the heads of states, after the family photo, they will find us ready for them. So only heads of states to exit, where we'll proceed for the family photo at the front courtyard, at the front of the courtyard by the stairs. The rest, kindly, let's remain seated. For those participating in the closed door session, we'll proceed to the closed door room, which is to your right, my left, but I'll guide you on when we'll do that once we've had all the heads of state having exited the room. Thank you.
No money. So therefore, this meeting is, then you get your neo-colonial civil servants. They talk of import support. Imagine there is money for import support. Import support, import support. The governor writes to me, reports, we have got import cover for so many months. But I don't want to import, I want to export. Why don't you tell me about import substitution and export promotion? Instead you are telling me of import support. Money, so money is available for to become more dependent. So I'm very glad to hear what now finally, the cash which we told our people about in the 1960s, we told them, part of the wars we fought in Uganda, we had to get rid of the neo-colonial groups which were there, which were stopping us from thinking. We had to get rid of them by force. But one of the problems was Africa producing raw materials, matière primaire, they call it in Français, matière primaire. Raw materials. Imagine coffee. The global value of coffee is $460 billion. All the coffee producing countries of the world, Brazil, us, all these, we only get 25 billion of that. Out of the 460 billion, the coffee producing countries get 25 billion. And Africa gets only 2.5 billion. 900 million of that comes to Uganda because Uganda produces a lot of coffee. A country like Germany, which has no coffee, earns $65 billion from coffee. So, I sell a kilo of coffee, good grade coffee, $2.5. Somebody in London would get $241 from that 1 kilo. Okay, there are other costs on the way. I don't want to, because he's the owner of a restaurant and so on. But coffee roasting, coffee grinding, coffee packing must happen here in Africa. It must happen at source. The shirt I'm putting on is Ugandan cotton. I don't put on foreign clothes. It's only the trousers I'm putting on because I can't go naked. Because they have not solved that problem for me. So, if you look at cotton, how many job levels are there? Job levels. You grow the cotton. Okay, that one we do. Those jobs we do. We gene the cotton. Kutoa mbegu, remove the seeds. That one we do here. And we end there. When you hear all these countries which have got crisis, Burkina Faso, I don't know what, Mali, all of them are cotton growing countries. But how much textiles are they producing? They're importing textiles, I don't know from where. So now if you end at level 2, gening, removing the seeds, then you take the pamba, you take the cotton, to cleverer people who are clever. Watu wenye akili. Wako huko, sisi hapo tutajiita vipi? Kama mtu anakuzidi akili wewe unasema wewe nani? So they take the cotton, they spinning, more money, more jobs for their children. They weave, more money, more jobs for their children. They put the print, more money, more jobs for their children. I looked at the figures. Uganda consumes 276 million meters of textiles each year. And that wonderful country of yours spends $880 million on clothes. Some of them dead people's clothes from Europe. When people die, their clothes, they are sent to you people, to Africa. And we spend 800, all the money we earn from coffee goes back to bring dead people's clothes. But we have got one factory there called Nairobi. It produces 25 million meters. So in order to clothe our people in Uganda without importing, we need about 11 factories like the one of Nairobi. And they would employ about 20,000 people. So there, and we would save $880 million, which we are just giving it to other people. So this Ida, what did you say about the modern slavery of the Africans of producing raw materials? In one of our documents in Addis Ababa, we had talked of Africa producing what it does not consume and consuming what it does not produce. They had put that as a summary in one of the documents of the African Union. We must get rid of the production of raw. I banned the export of minerals from Uganda and processed. I banned them. Piga marufuku. Then the agents were going in the corridors, what Mufanyi, no mineral will come from Uganda if it's not processed. You wait until I go away, you can steal the minerals, but not now. I banned this export of unprocessed minerals in 2012. My young brother, His Excellency Ruto, I forgave him and gave him some little iron ore for, I think, 2 or 3 years. Because I've got a lot of iron ore, one of the best in the world. I told him, His Excellency Ruto's man, Muhindi wa hapa Kenya, you come and build the steel factory in Uganda at the iron ore. Oh, yeah. I've already built in Mombasa. So I said, okay, because of my young friend, I give you some iron ore for 2 or 3 years. But come and put the factory here. Now you can imagine akili ya watu wenu, my civil servants. An Indian wanted to take that iron ore to India, imagine. Iron ore in our language is called obtare, but it is soil, black soil. If you see it, it is soil. To take that to India and do what? Pay your wonderful people $47 per ton. Our iron ore is the purest in the world. It is 70% pure. So you need like 1.5 tons to make a ton of steel. Now, a ton of steel costs $700. Somebody gives you $47 on your wealth, the wealth of your people, and he gets $700 from it. And all the jobs, your children have no jobs. Watoto wa Wahindi wanafanya wamepata kazi. I can't be part of that treachery. So I banned, there will be no export of unprocessed minerals from Uganda. So there's no business. What do you mean there's no business? So when I banned them, they are flocking in now. They have opened 7 gold refineries. 7 gold refineries, they are there. Because I banned. The other day I was opening a tin refinery. You can imagine this tin, and the Sulu Samia may know where we were, the power station, both sides, the Uganda side and the Tanzanian side. That is all tin. But all this time, imagine, since the British were here, they were taking, walikuwa wanachukua mawe tu, stones, because tin in nature is a stone, looks like a stone. So they take that. And they give my people $11 per kilo. And they take it to cleverer people. For the cleverer people, they get $32. My people got 11, those people get $32. And all the jobs. So when I was opening the factory, I was asking the refinery, I was asking them, this boy who opened the factory is a Canadian. I was asking them, huyu Mkanada ameleta umeme wake? Has this Canadian brought his own electricity? No. Anatumia umeme wa kwetu. Aha. Ameleta maji yake ya factory? No. Anatumia maji yetu. Internet anatumia ya nani? Ya kwetu. So, out of the $32, much of that money will remain in Uganda. Pay for the raw material, pay for the electricity, pay for the water, all that remains in Uganda. So, what does, first of all, my African brothers and sisters say about this hemorrhage of Africa? Hemorrhage. Echikurukuto, we call it in Uganda. This hemorrhage must stop. The crisis you see in these countries is because of stagnation of the last 60 years since independence. The population is increasing, the economies are not increasing. What do you expect? So with these few words, Your Excellencies, what do I say? Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, President Yoweri Museveni. May I call upon His Excellency, Professor Faustin Archange Touadéra, President of the Central African Republic, to please come and give some remarks. Bienvenue.
Excellence, Dr William Samuel Ruto, Président de la République du Kenya, très cher frère, Excellence,
very dear brother, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of government and state, the President of the Banque Mondiale and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also talk to my brother, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and the Kenyan people. I'd like to express my deepest feelings and express our solidarity for the solidarity expressed with the Central African Republic following the floods that have led to the tragic disappearance of many people and also a lot of destruction in our sister country. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I take to the stage now representing my country, the Central African Republic. On this occasion of this summit or Heads of State Summit, or Summit of the Heads of State and Government in the ambitious reconstitution of resources of the AIDA 21 for Africa. Allow me to also express our deep gratitude towards my brother, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and the Kenyan people for the organization, the successful organization of this summit, and also the welcome, the brotherly welcome, very warm, which we have known since our arrival in this really dynamic town of Nairobi. I'd also like to thank Mr. Ajay Banga, the president of the World Bank Group, for his full participation in this very important summit, for his leadership, and also on reconstitution of resources, AIDA 21. It is also the moment to express my deepest gratitude to the World Bank for the multifaceted approach that we have been given today. I'd also like to thank the entire group of funders in AIDA, because it is thanks to their contribution that this institution has the necessary resources to help the most poor countries on this planet to be able to move to some place. So also the African Union, that it is in Africa that we also find a number of natural resources and strategic minerals, and we find that some of these countries are some of the most impoverished of these countries, and the Central African Republic has had a feeling of this level of poverty that we are talking about in this AIDA 21. So we talk about 0.8 percentage growth, which means that a child who was born before the pandemic will only realize 28% of his potential if he has received any education and other services adequately. In 2021, up to about a larger percentage had achieved basic sanitation, but we also had 80% who had no access to electricity or internet by 2017, according to the United Nations. So in April of 2024, so 40% of Central Africans would not eat a full meal. So we are told that there are millions of people, that is about 46% of the population, are living in extreme vulnerability in this 2024, and which needs urgent humanitarian action. Now, in such a very difficult national context, exacerbated by the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and also tensions at international level, the contributions of the World Bank Group to fight against poverty and also the promotion of socio-economic development are essential, if not vital. In fact, AIDA 21 had already about $370 million, already showing its importance in our quest for reducing poverty. So this kind of financing allowed for the construction of a solar park near the capital in Bangui to supply electricity to 60,000 habitants. So we appreciate such a support that also helps us to reach communities that are displaced, also reaching out to vulnerable households. And when you're talking about 40 American dollars for each person, allows us to come up with, support them to come up with income generating activities and continue with education. The project, the support project and the health sector allowed us to open clinics that are open to millions or 1 million people, with about 362,000 prenatal visits, and where people can also receive psychosocial support, especially where there has been gender-based violence in the districts, that also reached 292,000 people. Now, these figures are 142 million American dollars that have been put in projects, amongst which 16 national projects and 3 at regional level. So cumulatively, so we are talking about a reach of 48%. We'd like to reiterate our wish that these projects that are still in the pipeline be fast-tracked to also help us reach a wider group of the population. Like it was noted, IDA financing has contributed to improve on the livelihoods in the towns and also to mitigate the effects of conflicts and underdevelopment. So we are talking of strengthening of actions and also projects that are under-financed, and also as we look at having more of the sustainable projects. So when we are talking about 2024, 2028, we are capitalizing on the plan to consolidate 2017-2023 program that had been improved on in the Central African Republic, and also the route map that Rwanda provided. We have looked at it with the improvement in the security situation. The new program allows us to move from humanitarian actions to development and also accelerate the economic growth, reduce poverty, and also improve on the well-being of our population, which is mainly young. Our vision, as we look at 2028, is to construct, we have a prosperous Central African Republic, which has quality human capital that is resilient and also sustainable, and where to have projects that are inclusive and are open to governance. So IDA 21 to us looks like an historic opportunity for our growth and our development. In order to make use of the potential opportunities that could open up and also the implementation of the PND, our priorities consist of investing in human capacity and also put up roads, digitalization, and also intelligence, and also other projects that also take into account climate changes and also reduce the gap between in populations in the fragile nation. So it is in this sense that could also contribute to also help us reduce the obstacles that stand in the way. So that is why we are looking for concessionary resources, and we making an appeal to our funders to reconstitute what is offered, for instance, as was in IDA 19, IDA 20, in the context of reconstituting financial resources at international level, and also the compensations and also access to climate finance. So this occasion is also a time for me to honor the simplification of the procedure of IDA, which also gives us options in financing that are simpler, more accessible, faster, and also that we can have a better impact at a greater level and also at a greater speed. I'd like to end and reminding us that IDA is a partnership between the donor pays and the recipient countries, and help the receiving states to reach, be able to have sustainable growth as they look at having a more prosperous future. It is the wish that I would have for my country and for other countries that are also benefiting from IDA who are represented here. So we are looking at our level of indebtedness and the conditions of the capital markets. IDA 21 remains the most credible factor that we have when we look at concessionary rates for a country like mine, which has just come out from a fragile state, and also to help us add value to our human capital. I'd like to ask all the traditional funders and also the potential new funders to also make themselves useful and you contribute massively to the 21st reconstitution of resources of the International Development Association, IDA 21, to have a more equitable and just country. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence. I would now like to welcome His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros, to the stage. You're welcome, Your Excellency.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président Ruto, que j'appelle Ahmad Abako, un cher frère.
I call Ahmad Abako a dear brother. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of government and state, Your Excellency, Monsieur Ahmad Ghazouani, the President of the Conference of the African Union and the President of Mauritania, Your Excellency AJAABU, the President of the World Bank Group, ladies and gentlemen, the heads of international institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and ladies, greetings to all. I'd like to first of all express on behalf of my delegation and on my own my gratitude to our brother, the President Ruto, for the perfect organization of this summit, and also to our brothers and sisters in Kenya for their warm hospitality and in this beautiful town of Nairobi. As we meet for this crucial summit, in order to deliberate on the question of reconstituting the resources under IDA 21, I'd like to first of all to underline that Africa finds itself today in a crisis, unprecedented crisis. So when we are looking, there are a number of obstacles, there are economic disparities, environmental degradation, security and health crises, and inequalities in education. However, in the midst of all these problems comes an opportunity that is exceptional for collective action and also for transformative change. Our continent is in effect has a lot of potential resources to help us, and also when we talk about very important human resource. So to be able to play its role in the world economy, Africa needs big investment in a number of development areas. Ladies and gentlemen who are here, so IDA has proved to be an ally that in our path we're heading towards sustainable development. It is unique in the world where a dollar from the developing countries is also supported by $4 for the financing of development projects. As we engage, this is the trajectory of the IDA 21. It is important, it is imperative that we also recognize the indispensable role that this institution has played in the promotion of inclusive growth and also prosperity in Africa. As such, the $23 billion of reconstitution in IDA 2020 allowed the institution to mobilize $93 billion for financement for the member countries, of which 20% have been engagements that are destined to reach African countries. So we can agree with me that is in a very difficult context of access to financial markets. The IDA instrument needs to be honored, thanked, and also strengthened by our contribution that is very important as partners. Also, we also express our deepest gratitude to all our partners, first of whom is the World Bank, so thanking it for its robust and continuous continued engagement and support that is appropriate to help us do away with the obstacles to development that our countries face. So this robust reconstitution of IDA comes from the simple need that is financial and also incarnates a moral imperative and also underlies to ensure that no one is left behind in our quest to be more ready for the African countries as such. And IDA 21, that's ambitious, should give priority to efforts to invest in development areas such as agriculture, energy, infrastructure, and the climatic adaptation before supporting creation of work of quality workforce of young people and underprivileged groups. So this would be created from IDA 18. We have been able to get substantial concessionary funds going to the private sector that to help people get out of poverty by creating sustainable employment, economic transformation, and mobilizing resources at national level since its creation. So $4 billion of funds have allowed more than $20 billion of investment to the sector, private sector, supported in 47 countries. This has also favored the introduction of new financial resources for development in the eligible countries, also helping to reduce in the domains of that the private sector has chosen to invest in. So I'd like to support this partnership with LEADER for having responded to us and to come up with a very strong and ambitious reconstitution of the IDA 21 and to make sure that the resources are also meet the aspirations, the collective African aspiration. And in addition to the contributions of our partners, we cannot underestimate the transformative power of technology and cooperation and regional cooperation. So when towards the realization of this SDGs for our economies, allow me also to underline the importance of accepting the IDA 21 with as a task that we take with determination, conscious of the importance, responsibility that we have in common. So we need to come to also support this resolution as we look forward to a better future for Africa, because it is only when we have access to this that we can also achieve the Africa that we all dream about collectively. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to support, to underline the situation that island states such as Comoros are facing. So we would also have to have a plan that also takes into account the effects of climate change, like tsunamis, cyclones, and also floods. The situation is very alarming. So this needs a particular attention from our partners, our development partners like IDA. So as such, my country is advocating that IDA should to look at the specific problems that island states that face as vulnerable states. They are very fragile, and also they are also touched in the environmental sector. They face a lot of food insecurity. They also have external shocks of all natures, and also this means that are dealing with very specific objectives that would help us adapt to climate change. And as such, I would like, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my proposal by a African proverb when we say that we do not handle things singularly. So if we come together to face these obstacles, I would wish us all success in our work, and I thank you all.
Merci beaucoup. If I please may invite the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. Your Excellency, if you could use the podium. Your Excellency, if you could use this podium. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, Your Excellency Mohamed Ghazouani, Chair of the African Union and President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, the President of the World Bank, Mr. J. Banga, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the dynamic President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto, for the invitation to speak at the summit of the International Development Association, IDA, and for the hospitality of the Kenyan government. This gathering serves as a platform for collaboration and a catalyst for transformative change. As we convene here, we're tasked with a great responsibility to articulate the case for an ambitious and robust 21st replenishment of the IDA, one that will pave the way for sustainable development and prosperity, not only for the African continent, but also for all nations in need. The challenges we face in the 21st century are immense and multifaceted. From the continuing effects of poverty and inequality to the urgent threats posed by climate change and pandemics, our world is in need of bold and innovative solutions. Yet amidst these challenges lies an opportunity to redefine our approach to development, to reimagine our priorities, and to forge a path towards a more equitable and sustainable future. The IDA, with its long-standing commitment to poverty eradication and inclusive growth, stands as a testament to the power of international cooperation. Over the years, it has played a pivotal role in lifting millions out of poverty, expanding access to education and healthcare, and building resilient communities. However, as we look ahead, we must acknowledge that our work is very far from finished. Millions still live in poverty. Millions still lack access to basic services, and millions suffer from the effects of environmental degradation and climate change. Excellencies, all of us are aware, for example, of the enormous infrastructure challenge confronting Africa. The African Development Bank, AFDB, estimates Africa's infrastructure needs at between 130 to 170 billion United States dollars annually, with a financing gap of between 68 billion and $180 billion annually. The infrastructure gap has a negative impact on our competitiveness. It constrains our development, stifles business growth, trade, investment, and service delivery, as well as the overall progress towards inclusive and sustainable development. Mobilizing finance and investment remains central to Africa's development needs and attaining the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Our biggest challenge is not a scarcity of financing, but overcoming a global economic system that has not allocated sufficient long-term resources to support Africa's economic transformation. That is why boosting the resources of the IDA, whose ability to generate concessional financing represents an effective way to respond to the obstacles that African countries encounter in the present global system, is so critical for the prospects of Africa's development. With the burgeoning population, our challenges hinge on our ability to provide reliable electricity, affordable and decent housing, improved transportation networks, education, and health infrastructure. Without this, we will be staring down again the possibility of a lost decade characterized by suboptimal GDP growth. Excellencies, more than half of African countries are debt distressed. Ghana is currently going through the restructuring of her debts under the G20 Common Framework, which we all know is a slow process and needs to be stepped up. At the same time, we're suffering from the increasing effects of climate change and the devastations caused by COVID-19 and other adverse global developments. Doubling IDA to provide more concessional facilities to our countries is of utmost importance to help us cope with these challenges. The intersection between climate and debt makes imperative the need to reform the global financial architecture in a way that delivers more resources to our countries to help address the current polycrises affecting our development and that of future generations. Therefore, the time has come for us to redouble our efforts, to recommit ourselves to the principles of solidarity and shared responsibility, and to unlock the full potential of the IDA. This replenishment presents us with a unique opportunity to mobilize resources, to leverage partnerships, and to scale up our impact. It is a chance to invest in the future, in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure, and in the resilience of our communities. But let us be clear, this is not just about funding. This is about vision, about leadership, and about political will. It is about recognizing that development cannot be achieved through aid, but requires a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes of poverty and inequality. It is about empowering communities, building capacity, and fostering innovation. And it is about ensuring that no one is left behind, that the most vulnerable amongst us are given the support and opportunity they need to thrive. In conclusion, I want to state that the task before us is daunting, but the stakes are too high for us to falter. Together we can shape a brighter future for generations to come. Together we can build a world where every child has the opportunity to fulfill his or her potential, where every family can live in dignity and security, and where every nation can achieve sustainable development. Let us seize this moment, let us rise to the challenge, and let us make history. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Allow me to call on the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, His Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of Federal Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Mohammed Ghazwani, the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and the Chairperson of African Union, Your Excellencies, fellow African leaders and heads of states, His Excellency, Your Excellency Mr. J. Banga, the President of the World Bank, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As an opening, it is an honor and privilege to participate in this great occasion of the discussion of the African leaders on the future of financing of our common development agenda with the President of the World Bank, his senior leadership team and donors. Instead of well-replenished IDA 21 means more opportunity for investment, job creation, economic growth, and effective response to the devastating global shocks like the climate change, which hampers all our progress despite our minimal contribution as a continent. Essentially, in this age of increasing global uncertainty, socio-economic, political, and security risks like the Red Sea crisis, as well as the enormous development financing need, we must ensure IDA 21 becomes the main vehicle to support sustainable development. Without this, almost all developing low-income nations will struggle to deliver progressive changes from the offset. I wanted to thank the government and the Republic of Kenya and His Excellency President William Ruto for hosting this critical meeting on IDA 21 replenishment and for bringing us all together. I also wanted to recognize the visionary leadership of His Excellency Ajay Bank, the President of the World Bank Group, who has demonstrated that he is firmly committed to leading a responsive bank that delivers results through the evolution roadmap. It is encouraging that the World Bank is listening, learning, innovating, and acting to provide a tailored context-specific support for our most urgent priorities to spark growth in Africa. Somalia and IDA for Somalia. IDA is a major lifeline that we are relying on enabling our ambitious national transformation agenda in this hopeful and post-debt relief priorities. IDA's impact on Somalia are enormous and include core institutional and system building, culminating in the achievement of heavily indebted poor countries have a completion point in December 2023. Up to 20% of the Somali population have benefited from the World Bank funded activities in Somalia since 2018. Approximately 69% of these beneficiaries were poor people living with small children and were affected by the drought, floods, and a locust infection in many parts of Somalia. Support to the rehabilitation of access roads and climate resistance infrastructure in many parts of Somalia and many municipalities in corners of Somalia bring various benefits to millions of people, including internally displaced people, IDPs, that had migrated to urban areas due to security, natural disaster events. Provision of effective livelihoods and life-saving assistance to our citizens throughout the triple crisis of climate shocks, locust infestation, and COVID-19 pandemic. Essentially, AIDA in Somalia has meant more vulnerable people out of extreme poverty, more social protection, and women and children are focused on supporting government institutions by helping those vulnerable groups. Despite our successful decade, long economic reforms to achieve debt relief throughout the highly indebted poor countries initiative, HIBIC, we remain among most fragile states in the African continent and the world. Without doubt, Somalia has come a very long way from where we were on a decade ago in terms of macroeconomic stability and socio-economic development. We also have exciting and empowering plans to keep the reform momentum going on, to lock in the vital gains we have made and build on them for a transformative change. However, these efforts require resources. Accordingly, we require the upcoming AIDA 21 replenishment to be of the scale and ambition that will help shift the situation from fragility to resilience and growth in Somalia. And this can only happen through greater investment in human capital, infrastructure, social protection, job creation, increasing affordable energy access, and building resilience to the disastrous and disproportionate impact of recurrent and cyclical climate emergencies in my country through AIDA 2021. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a government, we are truly committed to build on the economic reform gains from the debt relief process by the future. Further enhancing domestic revenue, mobilization and strengthening public and financial management, debt management, and deepening financial sector development in Somalia. We are cognizant that the most reliable income for the nation is what it collects from its citizens and investors to reinvest the priorities and the public service needs accordingly. With a focus on clear laws and more efficient and effective tax administration, we are steadily growing domestic revenues. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude that AIDA is a tool that helps Africa to progress, and in particular Somalia to move forward as fast as we can. Adjustments, tolerances, and flexibility is what is required in the years to come to benefit from the AIDA resources. Again, I would like to thank the government and the people of Kenya for providing us this opportunity to discuss about the future of our nations in economic development. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I would like to invite the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, the African Union Chairperson and President of the Republic of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, His Excellency Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, President Ajay Banga, and senior management of the World Bank Group, representatives of the United Nations, the African Union, and other regional bodies, representatives of governments, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you very warm greetings from the government and people of Sierra Leone. I extend my deep gratitude to President William Ruto and the people of Kenya for hosting the 21st replenishment of the International Development Association Summit for Africa 2024. Either 21. I express similar appreciation to the International Development Association team and its partners for their relentless effort in accelerating the mobilization of much needed resources that will support the transformational development objectives of low-income countries, including those in our beloved continent. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is at a crossroads. Our continent faces an array of challenges unique in its history. Recovery from the devastating impact of COVID-19, rising debt and economic vulnerability, political instability, the growing disruption of climate change, often compounding underlying fragilities, and the full crisis triggered by the conflict in Ukraine. According to the Sustainable Development Goal Report 2023, if the current trends persist, about 7% of the world's population, which is 575 million, we remain in extreme poverty, with most of them being in sub-Saharan Africa. Many governments in Africa are making huge strides to advance sustainable development and alleviate extreme poverty in their countries, in alignment with targets set out in the African Union Agenda 2063 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. However, with 6 short years left to achieve the SDGs, most of our countries are not on track to meet the targets. Under current circumstances, a business-as-usual approach to Africa's development is not going to work. We need a change in our approach. We need a bolder vision that will transform Africa, reduce its vulnerability in a turbulent world, and set it firmly on a path to sustainable growth and prosperity. Our current exigencies call for decisive and collaborative actions from African governments and the international community, and reliable development partners such as the World Bank Group to usher in sustainable transformation in Africa. For either to remain relevant to the evolving needs of member countries, especially in Africa, it must grow and adopt responsive and innovative mechanisms to finance transformational development. Our collective aspiration
to accelerate development in Africa by providing sustainable financing from AIDA 21 replenishment remains a critical milestone that must be achieved with resounding success. A renewed commitment to good governance, transparency, and accountability must be central to our efforts. These are the cornerstones upon which we can build resilient institutions and foster an environment conducive to investment, innovation, and economic growth. Therefore, Sierra Leone unreservedly endorses the Nairobi AIDA communique and looks forward to working with recipient African nations to advocate for a mega 21st AIDA replenishment. The communique reflects our vision to ensure prosperity of Africans and particularly safeguard the aspirations of Agenda 2063 and the SDGs, which aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Today, as we present the AIDA Nairobi communique, we are optimistic that the provision of additional resources would support our vision for a climate-smart, resilient, and integrated Africa. The AIDA 21 resources should help our countries expand quality, sustainable, climate-smart infrastructure investment in agriculture, energy, transport, water, and sanitation, healthcare infrastructure, and other sectors. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is key to global growth, security, and ending poverty in a livable planet. Despite the many threats our nations face, there are also real opportunities on the continent. Our natural resources, youthful population, and rapid growth of African cities and the middle classes have huge potential as they are beckons for investors to search in search of new markets. If Africa is to meet the targets of SDG 8, decent work and economic growth by 2030, we must act now to transform the working age population into productive forces with more decent and inclusive jobs for the youth, especially our women. According to the International Labour Organization, ILO, over 72 million youths in Africa are not in education, training, or employment, and the majority of these are women. The AIDA 21 replenishment thus provides a window to increase job creation through scaling up private sector investment, increasing critical and growth sectors, promoting entrepreneurial skills, technology and innovation, and boosting female empowerment. As measured by the World Bank's Human Capital Index, assuming that a child born in sub-Saharan Africa benefits from complete education and full healthcare coverage, he or she is anticipated to realize only 40% of future productivity. The Human Capital Index, this Human Capital Index is 48% for lower income countries and 71% for higher income countries. Clearly, we have more work to do for Africa. Therefore, stronger global cooperation and a commitment to investing in African capital, human capital, and creating a productive workforce are important ingredients in enabling developing countries to escape the trap of poverty and enhance economic growth and development. As we all strive to prioritize education and skills development, enhance quality health and well-being, and promote social protection policies and coverage. We must do so with a strong desire and will to advocate for increased resources that will make an indelible footprint in our lives for our people. In our collective action for AIDA 21 replenishment, we must ensure that women and girls, we must ensure that empowering women and girls is not optional. It is a condition for achieving inclusivity and sustainable development on our continent. We must allocate increased resources for gender mainstreaming in all our development programs. This includes improving women's access to productive resources, strengthening access to quality social services such as education, maternal and child health, addressing gender-based violence, and advancing women's leadership and representation in decision-making platforms. Also, given our prevailing fragilities, increased resources for security, conflict prevention and management, peace building, access to justice and crisis, and emergency response, we serve as important pillars in building stronger and more peaceful and a more peaceful continent. Furthermore, as our countries seek to leverage the fourth industrial revolution technologies, scaling up digitalization efforts across the continent requires enormous financial resources. As global leaders, we must be resolute in changing the face of business processes, systems, and the models in our institutions. The call for AIDA 21 replenishment should ensure that we make additional investments in areas such as payment systems development, digital financial inclusion, fintech development, and digitalization of tax administration systems. Your Excellencies, closing Africa's huge infrastructure gap should be an important component of the blueprint for the pending AIDA pooling of resources. Investment in critical infrastructure such as energy, roads, information, communication, and technology remain the pathway to a buoyant growth. Through the AIDA 21 resources, the World Bank's new energy program could support member countries in making huge investment in renewable energy sources and power transmission lines, an important sector required to spur economic growth and support our industrialization, as has been ably spoken to by our big brother, President Yoweri Museveni. Improving service delivery, accountability, and transparency in governance is critical to all these. Strengthening domestic revenue mobilization efforts, improving public expenditure efficiency and management is key. Improving debt management and exploring innovative ways to deal with unanticipated shocks is of utmost importance to all of us. We anticipate that the AIDA 21 replenishment will further help countries with increased debt budget support for their development programs. In conclusion, most of our countries are facing dire economic challenges, worsened by high levels of debt service payment. Despite these financial challenges, my government remains committed to delivering people-centered development through our medium-term national development program, plan. We are leveraging the big 5 game changers, priority areas of intervention to improve the quality of life of our people. These include 1, our flagship Feed Saloon program to boost agricultural productivity and achieve food security. 2, accelerating human capital development. 3, developing youth employment schemes. 4, revamping our public service architecture. And 5, infrastructure development and improving technology. We require substantial financial and technical support and strategic partnership to spur sustainable growth and social progress in Sierra Leone to alleviate extreme poverty in our country. Given the need to support the pact articulated in the Nairobi communique, I join my colleagues in the call to generate resources for IDA 21 replenishment that will be significantly higher than the record 93 billion raised in 2022 for IDA 20. As we continue this appeal, we are not oblivious to the challenging economic and geopolitical landscape that could have implications for major donor countries. We, however, remain optimistic that our traditional donors, new and emerging donors, and philanthropic organizations will once again rise to the occasion and give their valuable support to the IDA replenishment effort. Let us build a stronger Africa, share prosperity with IDA, and strengthen partnerships and cooperation to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before I invite the next leader onto the stage, may I very politely and humbly ask those who are yet to speak to keep to the allocated 5 minutes, please, if you can. Allow me on that note to invite His Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, to the stage.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency, AJAABU Bank Group President, IDA representatives of other regions, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by thanking our host, my brother, President Ruto. As we gather today, our shared vision for prosperous, equitable, and sustainable future hinges upon our ability to address the pressing challenges faced by countries across the continent, while also harnessing the immense potential of its youth population. Allow me to shed light on the state of affairs in Ethiopia, a nation that has been harnessing resilience in the face of a spectrum of challenges, aggravated by external forces such as climate change, pandemic, geopolitical tension, and the soaring global cost of living. First and foremost, the Ethiopian government has navigated structural macroeconomic reforms amid challenges, focusing our attention on macro-financial stability, productivity enhancement, and favorable investment climate. Second, and central to our collective aspirations for a peaceful continent, we must foster dialogue and reconciliation. In late 2021, Ethiopia formed the National Dialogue Commission to lead inclusive talks, independently tackling ongoing conflicts with wide public involvement. The Commission has thus far had consultative dialogue involving tens of thousands of stakeholders over 2 years. Regional dialogue are imminent, aiming to expand participation further. Third, like many AIDA countries, Ethiopia faces unemployment and a skill gap challenge, with the government prioritizing accessible education to empower citizens while encouraging youth engagement in startups across various fields. Investment in skills and education is central to Ethiopia's 10-year development plan, with a focus on sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism, expected to cover over 2 million new jobs. Fourth, universal energy access stands as a cornerstone for sustainable development. As it stands currently, half of our population is still without access to reliable electricity. We are massively investing on clean and renewable energy generation projects, which aims to accelerate universal access to affordable and reliable energy for all our people. Despite possessing over 60,000 megawatt potential from our diverse renewable energy sources, realizing this capacity demands substantial investment. Fifth, the digitalization of economies holds immense potential to enhance connectivity, spur innovation, and expand access to essential services. In Ethiopia, our telecom sector liberalization, mobile money, and digital payment system have expanded financial access in Ethiopia. The National Digital ID program we have launched is also a crucial step towards our digital transformation, greatly improving public service access. Lastly, as stewards of our planet, we must prioritize efforts to build a livable future for all. The Horn of Africa faces escalating threats from climate change, including rising temperature, food insecurity, and extreme weather events. Ethiopia is actively countering this challenge through its Green Legacy initiative, prioritizing afforestation, reforestation, and environmental conservation. With over 32.5 billion seedlings planted towards a goal of 50 billion over 2 phases. Ethiopia aligns with global agreements like the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Excellencies, while the international development associations' existing support must be commended, the sheer scale for challenges many African countries faces necessitate a renewed approach. With 120 million people, Ethiopia has great potential for prosperity. Yet, as a key recipient of AIDA support in Africa, Ethiopia faces a significant financing shortfall that may hinder its progress. Meeting the goals of AIDA 21 replenishment is vital to accessing essential development funds and driving Ethiopia toward its maximum potential. We urge AIDA to significantly enhance its financial capacity and funding models, specifically increased support for crisis preparedness, response, and recovery is essential. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very happy and excited to invite to the stage Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, our host, Chairperson of the African Union, President Mohamed Ghazouani of Mauritania, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, President of the World Bank, ladies and gentlemen, I thank President Ruto and the government of Kenya for the warm hospitality extended to us and commend him on successful hosting of this summit. Last December, Tanzania hosted AIDA 20 midterm review meeting, which among other things highlighted the impact of AIDA financing. In addition, to emphasize the need for an ambitious AIDA 21 replenishment, Tanzania reiterated as its appreciation for AIDA's collaboration, which has helped to improve maternal and child health indicators, rural electrification rates, access to safe drinking water, and economic recovery more broadly. We believe that it should be a collective effort to highlight both the impactful success stories of AIDA and the potential that AIDA still has. Indeed, AIDA has great potential to help its recipients to leverage resources from other partners. For instance, in Tanzania, we have an infrastructure project in Dar es Salaam called the Msimbazi Basin Development Project, which benefited from World Bank support worth $2 million. Having secured these resources, Tanzania has already been able to leverage an additional $60 million from other partners for this project, which aims at strengthening flooding or flood resilience and integrated urban development in our economic hub. Excellencies, in a bid to consolidate and building on the successes obtained during AIDA 20, we are pleased to advance this most important dialogue on AIDA 21. We are doing so at a time when Africa and the world are still facing the effects of multiple crises. In light of this crisis, coupled with significant shortfalls in development finance and shrinking fiscal space, what is required in going forward are more concessional resources. Moreover, considering the challenges related to present projected debt levels, we strongly believe that AIDA 21 should focus more on providing concessional loans, such as the 50-year credit loans. Given the present debt architecture on the continent, these facilities would provide more fiscal space to African countries to address competing development needs. Additionally, in the forthcoming AIDA 21 cycle, it is critical that policies are simplified and operational processes are streamlined. This is a matter that has a bearing on the access to development finance, the indirect cost of finance, and the achievement of the development objectives within the planned framework. Excellencies, all what would be discussed during this meeting are underpinned by investment in our human capital, which drives innovation and growth. And this is where my brother, President Museveni, was talking about. Africa needs transfer of technology and technical know-how. It will be recalled that in July 2023, Tanzania, in collaboration with the World Bank, hosted the African Heads of State Human Capital Summit. At that summit, we committed to investing in people for improving productivity and building inclusive and resilient economy. We believe that the commitments highlighted in Dar es Salaam Declaration on Human Capital are relevant and merit AIDA's support. Excellencies, history attests to the transformative potential of AIDA support for countries to transform and graduate. We expect the same spirit to guide us ambitiously in the AIDA 21 replenishment. It is on this basis that Tanzania also calls for an ambitious AIDA 21 replenishment that matches Africa's development aspirations with the resource needs. Once again, we commend AIDA partners for their support and call upon them to honor their pledges to foster economic development and improve living conditions. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Allow me to invite to the stage His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, the President of the Republic of Burundi.
Excellency, Monsieur Samuel William Ruto, President de la République du Kenya.
Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency, the President of the African Union, the Chair, who is also the President of Mauritania, Your Excellency, the President of the World Bank, dear heads of state and government, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin my speech by appreciating God who has allowed us to meet in this beautiful town of Nairobi, and also to address my thanks to my brother William Ruto for the warm and brotherly welcome that we have experienced since our arrival. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now talking about our countries, Burundi now is interested in all that we can do to improve on lives and also to address inequalities and operate in a way that would increase and diversify production without touching on ecology, and also address the ever-increasing demographic factors in view of climate changes. The Burundi people are also, when we look at the emerging Burundi, and also that was developed in 2000, the Burundi people have also, beginning with the young, have also started fighting against poverty and are looking towards sustainable development. So it is in this light that Burundi rejoices to be accounted amongst the partners, amongst whom in particular the World Bank. So the Burundi greatly appreciates the interventions of the World Bank over the years, and which has also helped in the socio-economic growth. Now, the AIDA 20 financing enabled us to have sustainable impact in the energy sector, economy, the environment, education, health, community development, infrastructures, transport, and social development in the context where our economy had been touched by a number of shocks and whose effects have been persistent, including COVID-19, the Ukrainian conflict, the world fiscal condition, climate changes, and to all this we can add the sanctions that Burundi has known since 2015. Now in 2023, this year was particularly marked by some slight improvement in our economic development and in the service sectors, the putting in place of social infrastructure, and also abundant agricultural production, thanks to the cooperation that was lent to locations that improved to the different sectors. Now, this effect also had in the improvement of performance in Burundi that is also seen in that improved for the 2022-2023 fiscal calendar, and which has been improved as we move to 2023-2024. This performance on our capacity also comes from the efforts and the reforms that have been initiated by the government, and especially in the summit meeting that enabled us to follow up on the projects, and also the strengthening of dialogue between the government and partners using the national strategy in the development cooperation, the strengthening of the budgetary discipline in state institutions, and also macroeconomic reforms as part of our achievements. In the case of certain projects, I would cite the dynamic coordinating team for projects, and also the diligence, the communities that also were also part of this team, and also in terms of fertilizers that we have had and seeds, and also the putting in place basic social infrastructure, and also integrated community development projects. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, with the new gap that Burundi has fixed, our priorities that my country is looking at as we take part in AIDA 21 to cover areas of health, education, and environment health in face of climate change, and there are certain domains, especially on reforms in terms of economic governance and statistics, as well as a development of important growth sectors such as digitalization of agriculture, tourism, energy, and infrastructure. Your Excellencies, Madam, ladies and gentlemen, in such an exceptional context, we have also been able to know that our tools in the industry are sometimes obsolete, and this also has an impact on production, and also the need for socio-economic integration, the effects of climate change in particular, and especially the rise of Lake Tanganyika waters. We have had floods as well. These all lead me to advocate positively for more aid to Burundi so that we can also accelerate transformative processes. I would not hesitate also to advocate for financing of the national strategy for socially economic integration for people who have been affected, and this includes a project of retention of human labor. So we are confident that the investments and the actions that are foreseen in the priority areas that we have identified that are in coherence with our 2024-25 vision and the objectives of development that allow for transformation in the continent will find favor with our technical and financial partners, with the World Bank, and also as we look to have economic growth. I'd like to end and as I express our thanks to the efforts of our leaders and also reaffirm the commitment of Burundi to play its role to ensure resilient and inclusive growth. I thank you all for lending me your ears.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Allow me to move swiftly forward and invite the President of the Republic of Madagascar, Your Excellency André Rajoelina. You're welcome to the stage.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République du Kenya, Excellences, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement,
heads of state and government, and also the president of the World Bank, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of leaders and institutional financial institutions, and your excellencies, our lenders, ladies and gentlemen. I would like, first of all, to express my gratitude and my thanks to the President and the people of Kenya for the hospitality in this that my delegation and my team have received since our arrival here in Nairobi. I'd like to congratulate President William Ruto for the organization and the World Bank for the regular organization of this high-level meeting that reunites the contributors and the leaders and the beneficiaries, and also to strengthen solidarity and to have a better path for our continent, that is Africa. In effect, this summit allows us to express ourselves to strengthen the financing of the African country pays, and also to help us attain our development objectives and sustain the people who have lived through the consequences of climate change. The participation of Madagascar in this meeting is important because that gives me the opportunity to also talk about the important, considerable impact of this project in Madagascar that is financed by the World Bank through IDA. Like you know, in the later years, the consequences of climate change have become more and more devastating. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my solidarity with the Kenyan people who are still going through today the consequences of tragic flooding for a number of weeks now. In Madagascar, the cyclones have become more and more frequent and violent. Like you know, my country is really exposed to climate change, and especially when we talk about the strategic position of the country and the character of our geographical position of our country makes us more vulnerable. The last cyclone just destroyed the north of my country. Kilometers of roads were destroyed. Thousands of agricultural land was flooded and destroyed. And we have just, in a year, we've had about 4 successive cyclones. So that I'd like to share with you that in one day, the cyclones need at least 2 to 3 years of reconstructions. Yet in the light of climate change, in the south, of the mainland, we have seen a diminution of the lands are arid and do not allow the people to till them well and also to meet their basic needs. Families are living we have thousands of children who are also malnourished. Ladies and gentlemen, dear leaders, you know that each day for decades now, Africa faces fratricide to fight against poverty because this leads to deaths daily. We need more financing to be able to combat this, to win this war. Today, on the African continent, more than 215 million children are suffering from underdevelopment and malnutrition. Like the African Bank of Development says, malnutrition is one of the causes, one principal causes of mortality of children under the age of 5. The daily reality of more people is touched by this tragedy. Now, in the light of such an obstacle, so the solutions that would look at investment in population, and that means that we need to be more powerful. That is more powerful than guns and missiles. I'd like to thank the World Bank and its leaders for having given us the means to combat malnutrition in Madagascar. Today, you may not know that the military expenses as 2023 went up, highest in over 10 years. So we'd had up to millions of dollars, and we are also suffering the effects of the war in Ukraine. But I have a question. We have invested $2 billion for $2.14 billion on arms. But how much are we going to invest to save lives on the African continent? So I now would like to invite our partners and like-minded countries to commit finances to construct, to also fight this war that we fight daily on the African continent, but also to develop and construct the Africa that we want. I am persuaded and convinced that with solidarity and international cooperation, we can have tangible solutions to this problem. Dear partners, I would like to share with you that since I became the head of Madagascar and since the beginning of my second term, the cooperation with the World Bank have allowed for an positive evolution, for growth, and also to reduce the rate of chronic malnutrition in Madagascar, coming from 40% to 38% currently. So we are able to reduce it further, the level of malnutrition in Madagascar by another 4%. So at this rate, I am persuaded that in a number of years, we are going to have at least maybe 30 in maximum. We'll be able to eradicate malnutrition in Madagascar. In the south of my country, a resilience program has also been put up dealing with agriculture, water, and local governance. More than 2 million people have benefited from health services and nutrition, with at least 450 communities that have been strengthened. However, the investments in the system, in health system, have allowed us to save a number of lives. Money transfers and other social effects have also allowed us to come to the aid of more than 5 million people in 65%, amongst whom are 65% women. I'd like to thank the World Bank for all these years of collaboration, for financing that has been allowed us and have allowed us to improve our development on significant projects, and with our emergence program in Madagascar, and the results are palpable. I'd also just like to cite a few examples through the green town and also the construction of strategic roads, which has eased the access to agricultural areas and the markets. So we have, since Madagascar has been existing, we have always had the problem of inaccessibility. But right now, the road is tarmacked and it facilitates access of people and goods. This program has impacted and changed the daily life of the population in this region. You know that in Madagascar, about 80% of the population are agriculturalists, but unfortunately, the land does not belong to them. It is for this reason that I have this CASEF project that has allowed us to distribute at least 2 million land title deeds of agricultural land, which represents 40% of the population. This will allow the exploitation, the farming, and benefit from the national heritage. Land is sacred, and it is part of our identity. Despite these major advancements, we still have complicated obstacles, and resilience is becoming more and more difficult. Madagascar needs more financing, and it has to be consequentially financing to help us tap to the resources that have accumulated over the decades, and also to have electricity made accessible to the population in the big towns. The majority of African population, about 65% of Malgache families, do not have access to electricity. It is for this reason that we have put in place a program to electrify each home through a program which we call Azavana Wano, or Light for All. We have decided each household in Madagascar has a solar kit. So our objective is within a year and a half, more than 4 million households will have this kit to light up their houses. And thus will also lead us to an economy that will see $950 million that which is spent in, and that is about $2 per home for this lighting project. So this is what we are talking about on the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, dear partners and leaders, like I had said, and I have just done so. So all this investment is to support. It is not only where we functional. We also have a number of the harms that are devastating us: hunger, famine, natural catastrophes, illnesses, and most of them are brought about by climate change. These are the kind of harms I'm talking about that are touching us annually, and each day there are millions of children who succumb to malnutrition. Millions of people die of hunger, and we also have others who do not get adequate access to health because as they suffer from the devastating effects of climate crisis and change. I'd like to invite us leaders to also improve, grow our financial support from from the World Bank, because Africa has many obstacles to face, and also enable the concerned countries to catch up in terms of development. May our voice go out in one as an echo. May it also speak about our engagement as we talk about a better future for all. And together, we'll be able to make a difference. Together, we can transform poverty into a prosperous future, and with a dignified for our people, so that all generations, the lead generations, depend on what the leaders do today. Thank you to our partners, partner countries, and also to the contributors to IDA. Your aid is determinant in development, on the African continent, and as such, for a country like Madagascar, we support this for our country. So long live today's leaders leaders who are bringing development for tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence.
Thank you so much,
Before I introduce the next head of state to address us, I'd like to recognize the presence of the former Prime Minister of Kenya, Mr. Raila Odinga, and the Chief Justice of Kenya, Martha Koome. You're both welcome. Allow me to ask His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Mr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, to come to the stage.
Your Excellency and my brother, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, Your Excellency Mr. AJAABU Banga, President of the World Bank, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past 4 years, Malawi has been through the hardest times, and everyone in my country feels it. Like a patient suffering from serious multiple attacks against multiple organs in quick succession, in the less than 60 months I've been president, Malawi, a nation I found already drowning in unsustainable and toxic levels of debt, has not only suffered the devastation of the COVID pandemic, but before we had any time to recover, was attacked by cyclones Ana and Gombe back to back. And before we had any time to recover from that, came the worst cholera outbreak in our nation's history, affecting every district. And before we had any time to recover from that, came a drought devastating the breadbasket northern districts of Malawi. And before we had any time to recover from that, came the monstrosity of Cyclone Freddy, killing thousands, displacing over 500,000, and trampling on decades of development gains and food crops for millions. And now, before we have had any time to recover from that, we have been hit by El Nino weather that has forced me to declare a state of disaster in 23 out of 28 districts, making me the first president in Malawi's history to declare a state of disaster every year of his time in office thus far. And if hearing all this makes you feel like Malawi should not have survived such shocks, you're right. But I came here to tell you that Malawi is a miracle, because despite the anguish Malawians have gone through and the pains they feel, Malawi has not only survived, but is in fact showing signs of recovery. And one of the secrets to our survival and recovery has been the World Bank's IDA, which I'll describe as Malawi's trusted and reliable ambulance in addressing the structural imbalances on the physical, current account, and monetary side occasioned by the shocks we have encountered. And like any good ambulance, IDA has saved Malawi from the brink by operating at 2 speeds simultaneously. The faster speed to immediately treat the collapsing organs of our aiding economy in real time, whenever disaster strikes. using quick response instruments to mitigate the impacts of external shocks on the poorest, and the slower speed to get the economy to the hospital for long-term treatment through structural reforms for sustainable and inclusive recovery. On the faster speed of immediate treatment inside the ambulance, IDA has swiftly provided Malawi support to respond to national, regional, and global emergencies affecting food security and balance of payments. Key to this have been initiatives like the Social Support for Resilient Livelihoods Project that aims at responding and building national resilience to disasters. Another example was the $60 million in IDA support we got from the crisis response window to restore the operations of Kapchira Power Plant, which was damaged by cyclones Ana and Gombe, resulting in the loss of 1/3 of our electricity generation capacity. Similarly, IDA is financing big reconstruction and infrastructure damaged by Cyclone Freddy last year, as well as helping us scale and smarten up our social protection systems and engage communities in the restoration of forestry, riverbanks, and degraded landscapes. A more recent example is how the bank has quickly responded to my appeal for $446.5 million in international support for the 9 million Malawians in need of food assistance in the face of El Niño. And it has done so by releasing $57.62 million to support the country's disaster response, while a further $7 million is coming through the sovereign drought insurance policy with the Africa Risk Capacity, ARC. So in total, the emergency care we have received inside the IDA ambulance en route to the hospital has risen from an average of $100 million in disbursements 4 years ago to now around $6 million, which is a record. In fact, Malawi is the first African country to sign up to the IDA's new crisis response toolkit, which will enable IDA to respond even more rapidly going forward. But let me conclude by talking about our ambitions for IDA on the long-term structural issues. Our ambitions go beyond stabilizing the patient, as we have done with our macroeconomic conditions, through our close collaboration with IDA and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Our ambition is to access even more substantial facilities in the IDA and other instruments the bank has tailor-made for us so that we can invest in the implementation of our ATM strategy, which aims at making heavy investments in the economic potential and productivity of our agriculture, tourism, and mining sectors. Our ambition is to create an inclusively wealthy middle-income economy within the next 6 years by creating mega farms that feed the world, by leveraging irrigation technologies that transcend weather conditions. Our ambition is to generate foreign revenue through tourism products that make Malawi the destination of choice for tourists. Our ambition is to generate wealth from our bastion of mineral riches by adding value to them and using the revenue to develop our people, our public service delivery, our industries, and our infrastructure through the operationalization and capitalization of the newly formed Malawi Development Cooperation. We will therefore appeal for flexibility in the accessibility of IDA facilities, for our ambition is for the bank to go beyond in-ambulance emergency treatment and in-hospital long-term recovery. Our ambition is for the bank to partner with us in building a new Malawi, one that is healthy, a healthy economy capable of being productive and competitive globally, leveraging on the new opportunities and markets emerging from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And to safeguard the impact of your investments in this ATM strategy, we have rolled out a fully integrated and comprehensive financial management information system, IFMIS, that will support our first program for results, P4R, financing with IDA. We have implemented energy sector reforms to crowd in new private investors through public-private partnerships. We have enacted the Malawi Disaster Risk Management Act to put our disaster risk management framework in order. And we are seized of the urgency of reconfiguring our civil service to focus on rewarding execution and delivery of projects, not entitlement and dysfunction. I must therefore thank the World Bank for recognizing these reforms by resuming general budget support to Malawi under Development Policy Operation, DPO. After a decade-long hiatus and following Malawi's successful qualification for the IMF's Extended Credit Facility, ECF, 6 months ago. And with these remarks, Malawi fully welcomes the replenishment of the IDA as a vehicle for economic transformation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'm going to politely and humbly reiterate the request for the remaining leaders to try to keep their comments to the agreed 5 minutes. On that note, allow me to invite Son Excellence, His Excellency, Nadir Labawi, Prime Minister of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Welcome to the podium, sir.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, William Ruto, President of Republic of Kenya, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to convey to Your Excellency and to the brotherly people of Kenya the warmest greeting from your brother, Excellency President Tebboune, who honored me by representing him at this important summit and delivering his statement, the text of which is as follows. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة السيد ويليام روتو رئيس جمهورية كينيا الشقيقة، فخامة رئيس الجمهورية الإسلامية الموريتانية والرئيس الحالي للاتحاد الإفريقي السيد محمد الغزواني، أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي والسعادة، حضرات السيدات والسادة، اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أعرب عن خالص شكري وامتناني لأخي فخامة السيد ويليام روتو ومن خلاله إلى الشعب الكيني الشقيق على استضافته الكريمة لهذا الاجتماع الهام وتوفير أسباب نجاحه. وتكتسي هذه القمة أهمية بالغة
has a lot of importance because it's a basic point to fund African since its establishment and this IDA, International Development Authority, and this is to give us the way to solve the challenges that faces us, especially in the level of debts and the funding, which wants a lot of countries which are poor to get the essential financing for their services like health, education, and climate to realize the sustainable development for 2030 and to get resolutions for
and also to extend our support and enhance national capacity as well as national system, and renew our commitment to transform our economy through strong governance, as well as based on economic strategy that prioritize the development of the private sector, and also by focusing on mobilizing national resources in a transparent manner as well as efficient manner. And we need to strengthen governance as well as our willing to respect our commitment in relation to the climate agreement signed in Paris. 9. Finally, we are encouraging the partner as well as donor of IDA to overcome the challenge of our century in order to avail their financial availability of IDA, as well as to have a strong constitution of resources in order to contribute as well as to meet the sustainable objective, as well as to overcome world challenges, as well as the Africa challenges as it has been mentioned in our communique. As I have mentioned in the beginning, we will publish the full communique of IDA that the African state as well as African government have adopted in front of all different representatives. We thank you, really thank you all. Thank you so much. As you have heard, we recognize that Africa plays a major role in the economical world growth, and the leaders that are gathered today have shown their will to really focus on inclusive growth as well as sustainable growth in Africa in partnership with IDA. The African ambition, it is huge, very huge. And the communique that I have just read show the collective will as well as the engagement of African leaders to implement strong solutions that we have identified. And now, I have the honor and the pleasure to invite Mr. AJAABU Banga, Chair of the World Bank, in order to launch the new coalition of IDA that is made of different partners from the civil society, foundations, private sector, youth.
But also how these aspirations will require work to be realized. The African continent boasts a youthful, vibrant population, the fastest growing in the world. It holds vast natural resources, fertile land, and a flourishing and entrepreneurial spirit. But on the other side are a set of well-defined challenges that have too often eclipsed these blessings. That is the backdrop we face. Africa at a crossroads. The path we choose will determine the path and the future for generations to come. Do we accept the status quo, a future where millions remain trapped in poverty, where the fundamental human right of electricity is elusive? Healthcare accessibility is inadequate, and infrastructure is insufficient to support the potential of the continent and its people. Or do we seize the opportunity to unlock that potential and usher in an era of prosperity and progress? The World Bank and its people believe that the answer is clear. Africa can and must chart a course towards a brighter future. And this is not a pipe dream. We have seen the success stories in countries that took advantage of AIDA, embraced good governance, invested in education and infrastructure, and fostered an environment where businesses can thrive. And in doing so, they have helped over the years to blaze a trail for others to follow. We began in the 1960s with Korea, South Korea, boasting a well-educated population but lacking capital and industry. China's story started later. In 1978, 770 million people in China lived on the edge of poverty, facing low economic growth due to lack of market competition and rigid policies on prices and mobility. India's path unfolded in the 90s and the 2000s. The country had to grapple with high poverty, held back by heavily regulated markets, dominant public sector monopolies, and unbalanced trade. Today, each of these is a country on the move. Each has transitioned from an AIDA borrower to an AIDA donor. But their journeys have common threads and lessons that I think are relevant for all of us. All three countries saw governments playing a crucial role in creating an environment that is conducive to growth, to private sector growth, domestic and international. They provided clarity on regulatory policy, implemented those reforms to attract that investment, domestic and foreign, and fostered a competitive landscape. Each nation benefited from a significant rise in the working age population during crucial development phases, and they invested in their people to realize that demographic dividend. And that provided a skilled and readily available workforce. Each recognized the importance of trade and competitive advantages as an engine of growth. They implemented policies to reduce barriers. They built strong domestic manufacturing and service sectors, which opened the door to rapid economic expansion. All three utilized AIDA for strategic investments in education, in healthcare, in rural development, areas crucial for any developing nation. They are not alone. 36 countries have successfully graduated from AIDA, 12 of them just since 2000. That is the transformative power of development assistance done right. Looking at Africa, I can see some very promising parallels. Several African nations are experiencing economic growth and implementing reforms to attract private investment. Many share a similar demographic trajectory with a projected rise in the working age population. And like these other challenges, Africa's countries also face their issues. Compared to the Asian tigers, private sector investment in Africa remains low. Infrastructure bottlenecks and limited access to finance further hinder growth. And the headwinds of debt, climate, and conflict restrain progress. So at this very juncture lies the promise of the kind of development effort that today has brought together government leaders, the international community, and the private sector. We all must be partners in progress. We have a mission-critical role to play, each of us, with governments leading on their own development agendas and AIDA as their partner at the core of those strategies. The story of economic development is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but by understanding the journeys of successful nations and applying the lessons learned, Africa can chart its own course towards a much brighter economic future. First, invest in our people. A skilled, educated, healthy workforce, digitally savvy, including women, is the bedrock of any thriving economy. A skilled, educated, healthy workforce, digitally savvy, including women. We need to ensure that every child has access to quality education, from primary school to vocational training and beyond. We must work to make healthcare accessible to them. And to confront that challenge, we're using AIDA to support our goal of providing quality, affordable healthcare to 1.5 billion people globally in 5 years. We just announced this in our spring meetings, expanding our work to new communities and broadening the scope of our services to include every stage of a person's life. Second, by building efficient and robust infrastructure. And I'm going to say that does not just mean rail or roads or homes or bridges, but energy and energy infrastructure. I believe access to electricity is a fundamental human right. and I believe it is foundational to any successful development effort. And yet half the population of Africa, 600 million people, lack access to electricity. And that's why at the spring meetings we announced we are working to deliver energy to 300 million Africans by 2030, 250 million with the World Bank Group, 50 million partnering with my friend Aki Nadasena at the African Development Bank. Third, support job-creating, value-added industries like agriculture and logistics, the warehousing and transport of that agriculture as an example, where the private sector could eventually come in to help farmers access new markets, entrepreneurs connect with customers, and young people access information and opportunity. So taking agriculture, it's an area of vast economic potential for Africa, but there are two problems. One, only 6 to 7% of the farmland is irrigated. And as I said in a session earlier, 37% is that same number for Asia. Two, Africa has one of the lowest rates of fertilizer usage in the world. That leads to yields that are 1/3 the global average. If we focus our investment in the right fertilizer and the right soil and irrigation, we can responsibly grow crops and grow opportunity. Made in Africa, for Africa, and for the world. That's the objective. So we've discussed 5 main areas where we believe jobs, growth, and the future of Africa can come from. Energy and the downstream effects of energy, not just generation and distribution, but what it enables. Infrastructure, rail, logistics, warehousing, transport, roads, homes. Third, healthcare. Think of the primary health centers in that 1.5 billion people pledge. They will create jobs for nurses, medical technicians, doctors, PPE manufacturing, medicine manufacturing. And then agribusiness, as I just spoke to. And last but not least, tourism, an area in which Africa has already made some progress, but the opportunities are limitless. The World Bank is committed to playing its part in all of these areas. We will continue to provide financial resources, technical expertise, and policy advice. We commit to work alongside governments to help implement difficult reforms as they pursue them. But we are joined in this endeavor by an army of friends and partners from the private and advocacy sectors. In a few moments, you will hear from leaders of this unique coalition who are taking early action in support of AIDA and Africa. They are essential in our push to make sure that governments have the resources and the support that they need to realize the potential we are speaking of. I'm looking forward to joining them again later this year at the big conference in Côte d'Ivoire to support the AIDA 21 replenishment. But the ultimate responsibility lies with Africa itself. The path of greatest potential. Let's choose a brighter, more prosperous future for Africa, a future where every child has the opportunity to thrive, and count on the World Bank Group and its people to be by your side, to be the hand on your back. We commit that to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, President of World Bank Group, AJAABU. I've been asked to acknowledge the presence of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, Shetima Kashima. Welcome to Kenya. Let's move swiftly on. As we just heard, AIDA is about partnerships, unity, and coalition. AIDA 21 provides a window of global opportunity. AIDA Coalition brings together a community of partners, all playing their part to work together for a successful AIDA 21 replenishment. With that, I would like to invite now the members of the AIDA Coalition who are present here today to deliver their remarks. Please allow me to first welcome Ms. Ndidi Wunele, President and CEO of One Campaign. Ndidi, if you could come to the podium, thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. I'm standing on existing protocols. I'm excited to serve as an AIDA champion, and we at the One Campaign are committed to serve on the AIDA 21 coalition, which brings together civil society, youth, and the